Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be doing a key opening and going over the new Mythic of King Bloodwood. He's in the Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest for this week only, and he'll be in the drop table with everything else. So if you want to try to get him, this would be the best time to do so. Otherwise, you're most likely just going to have to wait until you end up accumulating him from the Soul Forge with 4,000 diamonds. As far as this troop, he isn't a must-have. He's probably one that you may want to consider skipping. He is useful in some situations, though. So basically what he does is he does heavy splash damage to a single enemy. So he does full damage to one enemy and then 75% damage to the two adjacent enemies. Main thing to note with this is that this is physical damage and not true damage, which is relevant for the rest of his ability. The rest of it is, that is also boosted based on entangle and bleeding. So for every single entangle and bleed on the opposing team, that does end up getting 8 additional damage, meaning you could potentially get an additional whole 8 boost ratio, meaning 64 additional damage. Meaning right now we could actually boost up his damage to a single target to 94 damage, with half of that, or 75% of that, to the two adjacent. So pretty decent in that regard if you are capable of getting the entire team entangled and bled. One thing to note about this troop is that the bleed does not stack, in that the boost ratio of the bleed does not stack. It just checks to see if the enemy is bled. It will not do more of a boost ratio if they're a 2, 3, or 4 stack. It'll still do more damage per turn, but it will not do more boost ratio. It just simply checks if they do or do not have bleed, and if it does, it'll do 8 additional damage, and if it doesn't, then it won't do any. And it also then gets to steal 10 life from all enemies, and this is steal, so he does get to accumulate that life, meaning he gets potentially 40 life per cast, on top of the fact that he's also doing a pretty substantial amount of damage, and essentially doing a free 10 true damage to all enemies, so decent in that regard. 23 mana cost, so one lower than most other things, as most other mythics. As far as the Thorns, Elemental Fae, most relevant part about that being that it is elemental, so you can use Mirage Queen in order to half mana start this to 11 mana, because I believe it ends up rounding down. And other than that, he has 2 relevant traits. One is that he has 33% skull reduction, so he would be a semi-decent second slot if you want to put him into there. Definitely would not want to put him into first slot. And other than that, he also gets to entangle and bleed a random enemy every single time you do an extra turn. This is the first troop added to the game that has a double effect on extra turn. In this case, entangle and bleed. So we'll see what other doubles we might end up getting. Pretty sure some things might end up doubling with disease in the future, or poison, given that those are some of the weaker stats effects in the game. Also, I didn't really mention it yet, since bleed is a relatively not so used mechanic. As far as how bleed works is the more bleed stacks you have on an enemy, the more true damage you do to it per turn. And it goes 1, 3, 6, and then 10 damage. As far as how much damage you'll end up doing to it per turn. Or it's either 6 or 7. I keep forgetting the third value, just because it's an extremely underused mechanic. But the main thing you really need to know is that on 4 stacks, it'll do 10 damage per turn, as long as you keep the bleed on and maintain the 4 stacks. So you can end up getting a lot of true damage out of this. The main thing that makes bleed generally not viable is the fact that most things that have bleed have physical damage with it. There's currently 0 bleed troops in the game that have a decent true damage while simultaneously having bleed. I guess they did that just to not make it that overpowered, but in doing so, they made bleed almost useless in most situations. And other than that, it's kind of like a poison in that it just doesn't stack to be enough damage, even though it can do 10 per turn when you're upscaling to higher level content, or if you're trying to win quickly. Bleed is not good at doing either of those two things. He'll probably mostly be used for his entangle, while just having a bleed kind of as a side effect, while being able to one-shot stuff somewhat decently with his ability, since he could theoretically hit about 100 or so. Obviously, mostly like a PvP or possibly Guild War kind of troop. Definitely not something you would bring into Delves or Tower of Doom, as it would just be too weak at upscaling to be able to do so. But anyways, let's go and open some keys to go and get him, and then we can go and mess around with him in a couple teams. I still have a bit of testing to do. Obviously, I haven't even... Wow, that was... Okay. Okay. It's that kind of day. Streamer luck? No, we've gotten some really horrifically bad luck mythics recently. So to get a little bit of good luck, that's nice. So that's absurdly lucky. Don't expect that. But there we go. 50 keys, got it. Probably even quicker than that since we just opened the 50 at once. But well, that's one of the quickest mythics we ever got. So anyways, well, we were about to do a key opening. I guess we're more so showing teams. So there's the mythic. Let's go get this thing upgraded. So, Bloodwood, let me go and find where on earth he is, get this thing leveled, get it all everythinged. We'll just throw an orb and an orb. Since it is a mythic, you get the best value from throwing your orbs into them. So you generally do want to use your big oranges and big greens into your mythics, as nothing will get more value than a mythic from those orbs, since it will save you on all the trait stones, as well as saving you on all the souls, which are actually somewhat relevant now because of metals, of course. Metals, not really worth really mentioning this much with newer troops. He does have a somewhat decent metal setup, given that he is generally going to be used for pretty much all of these stats. A nice little mix of everything. However, it is a Mythic, which is absurdly hard to level up, because metals of Nishas take forever and a half to actually accumulate, so no need to worry about metals. Not to mention he wouldn't even be one of the ones you'd want to prioritize anyways. But anyways, on that anyways, let's go and put him into a couple teams and go mess with him, see how he does. Again, I still have to test a little bit. These are kind of just like right off the gate kind of teams. I wanted to get a nice little range, one with like all Forest of Thorns, just for thematic purposes, and some for upscaling since he doesn't upscale as well. And that offer is never worth it, never go for it. We literally just did that with a green orb and an orange orb, so that is definitely not worth it for 35. Also, one other thing, which I mentioned during the video the other day for the weekly event video, but this troop does bring Forest of Thorns to 16 stars, assuming that you have all the requirements for it. So we ended up getting 2 16 stars kingdoms this week and a 15 level kingdom. We ended up getting, or a level 15 kingdom and 2 16 stars, because there's a difference between kingdom level and star level. But yeah, Zacian reached 16 stars this week, Forest of Thorns reached 16 star this week, and whichever red kingdom you wanted to get to level 15 got level 15 this week as far as kingdom level, not the star level. And that would either be Mist of Scales or Wild Plains as the two most viable methods. Mist of Scales is the only red kingdom that has a faction attached to it, and Wild Plains just has the best overall bonus, so whichever way you want to go about it is the way that you'd want to use those. But anyways, let's go test these 3 teams, see how they fend for now against the meta and PvP, which apparently is still life and death. You thought that would drop some after it got nerfed, apparently not. But let's go test this first one. This one is obviously focused more so on getting his bleeds out. This ends up using Titan. It's a 3 elemental team based on the element, the thing that we just have there. Unfortunately, there's still no elemental hero class, so whenever we want to build a quote-unquote pure elemental team with hero, we kind of have to just use Titan, even though Titan is not actually an elemental. Hopefully we'll get an elemental class in the near future, but as it stands right now, Titan basically is the so-called elemental class, even though he's technically a giant. And the main reason for that is mainly because he's just a really good overall class, while also having the give all elementals a 1 magic whenever you cast a spell. So all 3 of these will be gaining 1 magic anytime anything on this team ends up casting, which obviously will mostly help our King Bloodwood, as he ends up getting a decent amount of damage per extra magic that he gets. A little over 2 additional damage per magic. So not as much as an AoE, but his damage is more focused compared to a AoE. But anyways, we'll start with this, obviously almost pure elemental. 3 elementals with hero in first slot, acting as kind of like a pseudo elemental. But the main thing we want to go do here is just pump up our Mountain Crusher initially. With our Mountain Crusher, we'll obviously start getting things rolling, and from there we should be good to go. We'll just get all of our manas. We do have a bit of Skull Spam attached to this team, which would be useful if we weren't entangled, but if nothing else, we can start utilizing his ability a little bit more. So you may notice with this team too, we have an interesting combination that should end up working out decently, and that is the fact that we have both Curse and Stun. The main reason for this is to make sure that we can go and entangle the entire opposing team, as well as being able to both entangle and bleed the entire enemy team. Otherwise, things like Impervious and such, as you can see with the Arachne Weaver here, would prevent us from doing so. But what we can simply do is, oh gosh, he just got rid of the board. It's a little bit of a weird situation. So we'll just go take a brown for now. We'll go and get a Mirage Queen so we can actually get this started. He is hitting so hard initially, but we should be able to make a comeback as soon as that gets unentangled, hopefully. But we'll go do this. So now we can get them all cursed. And now with them being cursed, we can go down the route of starting to actually bleed and entangle and stun all the ones that are would normally not be possible. So as you can see right here, we ended up stunning the Impervious Arachne Weaver, and that's just because we did a curse into a stun. And now if we were to go get bleeds on it from an extra turn, we'll be able to, as well as entangle. Things that normally wouldn't be possible to put on it would be possible now by doing a curse plus stun combination. Technically, we would only need stun, but the curse, but the stun also helps to just lower down any of the other effects that they might end up having, like the summon that Arachne Weaver has, for example. Anyways, with this damage that we have, we can actually just go target the Arachne Weaver directly. Of course, we have a pretty decent boost ratio. Every single one of these gets added up independently. So you may notice that currently only 2 enemy troops are entangled / bled. However, it does count every individual instance. It just doesn't count every individual instance of bleed. It only checks if bleed is on or off. So right here, you can see that we're getting a 4 boost ratio, or we're getting 4 of these boost ratioing. That's because there's an entangle there, a bleed there, an entangle there, and a bleed there. And what I was talking about earlier is even though we have 3 bleed stacks on them, it does not count as 3 boost ratio stacks. It just counts as 1 because it only checks if it's on or off. And that's how that works. So he would end up getting that 4 boost ratio there for 32 additional damage if we were to use it. And it looks like we're about to fail here just because Life and Death is still annoying. That hasn't changed. Life and Death with Weaver team. They nerfed it slightly down to 35% summon, this most recent patch. However, that's not enough to make average teams be able to work against it because Life and Death is still insanely good because it has Bless and everything. Though we might be able to still make a comeback here. Though not with that kind of damage. I guess we didn't have any boost ratios there. These are a really small amount. That did really small amount of damage, but at least we got some lifesteal too. If nothing else, that troop can become somewhat tanky. It's not exactly supposed to be a tank, but it does have 2 things that go towards it. Being a partial tank, which is why I said it's generally going to be used as a second slot. The 2 things that are going for is it gets to steal potentially 40 life per turn, or per cast I should say, with its ability. So it has that as a possibility. And the other thing, of course, is that it has 33% score reduction. And we're about to fail to Life and Death. Good job! Anyways, let's go get another one. There we go. There's something a little bit tamer for us to fight with this. So next up, a little bit more of a skull spam oriented team, given that we'll be able to mass entangle the opposing team. We'll be able to go and be able to utilize this a little bit more than we would normally be able to. So basic thing that we're going to want to go for here is pretty much just get Forest Troll up, get that rolling, and go from there. Any extra turns that we do are going to be able to get a lot of disables. We get 2 entangles per purple extra turn that we just got there, since we get 1 every single purple, as well as 1 every single extra turn off the other one. We'll still be able to get some bleed. Bleed won't really be able to help us too much here, but if nothing else, we can try removing that barrier with a bleed. A bleed proc will break barrier, even though it's only doing like 1 damage if you're doing the first stack. So for example, that thing right there, next turn will actually break that barrier. I think I am going to wait it out because I do not believe we have alignment right now. This is blue convert, which means we currently do not have an alignment. I really wish we did over there. That would be pretty nice. I think we almost just go to get this thing to full mana, though we don't currently have an option, so I'm probably just going to use the skull here, and then we'll be able to get a nice little doom down. Hopefully. Nope, not the board for it, so let's go move things around and see where things go from there. Still not really much of an option. We could try dragging this down. That's not going to be enough to actually do much with, though. Hey, let me take that last little extra turn right there. Still not much. However, we finally have our other convert, which transforms all red to purple, and then all yellow to skulls, which I believe we do not have alignment on either, unfortunately. Always annoying when we're using converting troops and just can never get their alignment. Too bad we don't have red to skull right now. That'd be pretty useful. But that is not what it does, and I do not believe we have anything that will even cascade enough to make it worth trying to attempt for. So since he's entangled, we'll just go and move something over, and then hopefully have a follow-up. So he's clearing the board here. That should likely give us a follow-up here, and it does not, apparently. It still might just want to go for it, just because at this point we need something going. So we'll go get that. A nice little AoE. That should clear the board enough to get things rolling a bit. He might hit us a bit, though he is entangled, so his amount of damage that he's going to be doing is greatly reduced compared to what it would normally be. So we'll finally go and be able to get this skull alignment there. Get that kill. This team also is full Forest of Thorns, by the way. Every single troop in this team is composed of Forest of Thorns, so just kind of a thematic kingdom bonus kind of thing going on here. Of course, generally, it's not really worth building around kingdom bonuses. It's still fun to see what kind of themes you can end up getting, which also means if we ever have a restriction of, let's say, Forest of Thorns Kingdom for like a raid event or something like that, these things would still be applicable for those kind of instances as well. Anyways, we'll go get the convert there just because we have alignment. Trying to get this blue thing to be aligned back up. Doesn't look like we have it, though it's enough damage that we might as well go for it. And then we can just let the roots kill it out, or we'll just get it with a skull. That ends up working too. So of course you can use him mostly as just like a entangle bleed utility, which I feel like in most cases is what he's going to be used because his damage is not that high until you get a really good boost ratio. You need almost 6 boost ratios for him to be upscaled to about what a Ketris does. You have to be mindful of that compared to if you were just to use a Ketris, because Ketris is only 1 color off for 1 higher mana. So more often than not, in many instances, you are just going to be using a Ketris other than a King Bloodwood. The only real advantages that a King Bloodwood has is he has better extra turn value, and he has skull reduction, making him a better second slot, whereas Ketris is generally used a little bit further down your team, more so towards third. So just a different like positional kind of troop that you can end up utilizing, depending on what way you want to go for it. Speaking of that, that's actually one change I probably should make with this team right here before I go and show it. So there we go, fixed it. So this is the slight upscaling team. As I mentioned, King Bloodwood, not really going to be much of an upscaler. However, he does have one thing that technically does upscale, assuming the enemy does not have immune to it, and that is entangle. So he does have the capability to constantly keep entangling. Ideally, the first troop like we just did right there, right at the beginning of battle. Oh, we are frozen right now. I was wondering why we didn't get an extra turn. That's annoying. We don't have any Cedrics on right now. Not that too big a deal, though. But Anything we're going to want to do now is just stack a bit of stats effects. Ideally, they'll start hitting different enemies, though. Even though bleed does stack, we want to be hitting different enemies, mostly because we want him to be able to go and get better boost ratio. And of course, we could do this by putting other things that also do those stats effects on the team, like bleed, entangle, stuff like that. Though generally, you'd want to have him as your main source of doing those actions. So let's go take that for now. We do have a Zugoff, which is of course the more so upscaling part of this kind of team. One nice thing about this troop, even though it is primarily a mix of true physical damage and true damage, because of that, you can end up using it to clean up first slots. So even though we technically don't have enough damage right now, which is your whole role, is to be able to clean up that first slot. However, even though we can't do that, generally how it would be used is a situation like this to be able to clear out the first slot. It just dies. Oh yeah, never mind. It is enough because I forgot about the 10 true damage. Aha! So just to clear out the first slot so you can start killing everything else out. So you kind of just work down the line. You do lose some of the value of the 75% adjacent damage, but based on how you're going to be applying damage in most battles, it would most likely be used in those situations just to be able to secure kill a single troop. You'd also end up doing that a little bit better for value if you could do it on the second troop, while still doing enough adjacent damage to the first troop to end up killing it. But there are many situations where that will not be enough damage, including the one that we were just in. Even though it would have done the extra 10 true damage I kind of forgot about for a second, it still wouldn't have been enough with the 75% to have killed it. But we'll go, and here's an instance where I can do what I just said. So right here, we should have enough damage that the 75% damage should kill it. What's 75% of 30? That's 22.5, meaning it's about 22. So 22 plus 10 is going to be 1 damage short. No! Really? Okay, does it really live with 1 damage, 1 HP? Yep, it rounds down, not up. Oh, how awful. You can't even do the adjacent damage thing. So that's what you would normally do as well if it's within kill range. It does round down, though. Be mindful of that, as we just saw right there. But you can end up using that in order to go and adjacent kill. Basically, target the enemy below the one you're trying to kill, and then the 75% adjacent with 10 true damage steal will end up hopefully killing them out. Just make sure that you actually have enough damage, otherwise it won't. Though do double check, because if they have a bleed on them, those stacks of bleeds could potentially close the gap. For example, if we had even 1 bleed on the Queen map there, that would have ended up killing her. But we didn't, so it didn't. Anyways, let's go kill it with the Bloodwood. And that is that. So as far as Bloodwood, very, very mid-tier kind of mythic. Definitely one I would say is probably worth skipping. As long as you have a good entangle option, you're probably fine without King Bloodwood. Bleed is just too underused of a mechanic and still too underwhelming in the current state of the game to really be viable. If they finally add some true damage bleeds, that might be a different story. But as bleed currently stands, it's just too underwhelming of a mechanic. It just doesn't work anywhere. It's too slow for PvP, and it doesn't upscale to most of the content that you would actually want to be doing, like level 12 Explorer and high-level Delves and, you know, various guild-related events. So all the instances where bleed is generally wanting to be used, it doesn't really work that well. It could be used as a Guild War option. Pretty much that's going to be the entirety of this troop, in my opinion. It's almost entirely just going to be used for Guild Wars because it's too slow for PvP grinding. And I don't know, it seems like the only really viable spot is second slots for Guild Wars, possibly on a green-related team. Though, of course, it can also be used on yellow and brown, depending on the composition that you're going for. And on yellow and brown, it might be able to fill, particularly on yellow, it might be able to fill a gap in entangle, because if I'm not mistaken, yellow of those 3 colors has the least amount of entangle, so you'll be able to go and get that. Though I guess green's sear, so never mind, maybe not too much. All those colors kind of have options, because brown has Sylvani Mora as the primary entangler. Green has like infinite, because greens have the most entangle out of any of them, and yellow has green sear. So I guess every single one of those colors technically already does have one. So I'm not sure. He's not just gonna have much of a purpose. Really mid-tier. One that I would say is probably worth skipping unless you can get it with as much absurd luck as I just got it. But anyways, guys, I will catch all of you later. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. I will be streaming a little bit soon, and I might be messing around with him a little bit, though the primary thing we're going to be doing this weekend is grinding tokens like crazy, because I need to catch up from when I was gone for those 2 weeks, because I still do not have a single +4 magic. And I ideally want to get at least 1 +4 magic by the end of this weekend, and most ideally get 2 if we somehow get lucky enough to actually get that many drops. So that's the main goal. We'll be streaming here, and we'll be streaming on Mixer soon, TM, probably in like another week or 2. Though we'll be streaming both on YouTube and Mixer simultaneously, so I'm never going to be abandoning the YouTube side. It'll still be pretty much the same thing, just with a different interface visually in the stream once it finally gets finished out, as I'm currently commissioning that. Anyways, guys, I'll catch all of you later. Hope you all have a wonderful week. weekend. Best of luck with trying to get the Bloodwood. Keep in mind, just as a reminder, it is in Glory Gem Guild and VIP chest for this week. And if you don't get it this week, just get it in Soul Forge at a later time. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching and have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, everyone, and best of luck.